So much for doing this. This is a
No
big
worries. Never done a podcast before.
no. I've only done one so far, so we're sort of new to the whole space and everything. So yeah, no, it will be fun.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we'll get started. Obviously love to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about sort of your business and what got you into the baby space and everything.
So I'm Amber. I have the Infant Boutique. I run it with my mum, Jo. It was just one of those things kind of fell into, actually. I had my first daughter 10 years ago and sort of kind of knew once I had her that I didn't really think I'd want to go back to like like and putting her in childcare. And mum came across this business that was up for sale. And it had gone into administration. So we just put in this ridiculous offer, thinking that maybe we just get, some of the stock, not necessarily the whole thing. And then they were like, here's business. And I'm like, oh.
Throwing you in the deep end.
Yeah. So the plan was like, I just wanted to, have like a little online business that I could sort of like, run from home or run out the back of mum's other business.
Yeah.
And then the emails and that and Facebook messages came flooding in saying, we missed the store. Are you going to open it back up? Like, there's not a baby store on this side of town. And I was like, oh, okay. So we did. Obviously, I couldn't do it without mum. Mum ended up selling her house, and she bought like the building that we're in now. So she lives in one half and the shop's in the other.
Yeah, amazing. Wow, that's very cool. And it's obviously, um, sorry, I will grab as well, like whereabouts your base. So sort of any people that are watching
Oh
this.
yeah, so we're in Norwood in South Australia, so just about 5 or 6 minutes out of the city centre.
Yeah, very cool. No, I definitely would love to pop in at some stage. Not close to South Australia, but we'll get down there on stage.
Yeah,
Um,
now that everyone's allowed out and on
yeah,
planes again.
exactly. Oh, it's crazy. Oh, Spencer, was
Yeah.
it okay for you and everything during COVID? Like, how was that for your business?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too bad. We were sort of, I feel like SA were pretty unscathed in comparison to some of the other states. Even though we had lockdowns, like they didn't last, like super long, like, a week here, a week there.
Yeah.
And even though there were lots of like restrictions, it didn't really like stop. I mean, babies don't stop coming.
Yeah. There was
So
COVID baby.
people still needed to buy, their baby stuff and presents
Yeah.
for Christmas and birthdays and all of that. So, even though like probably our online presence grew and we ended up doing like a few more like click and collect orders or contactless pickup, we
Yeah.
didn't really notice like a huge like there was it wasn't empty in a sense.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah,
Very good. Because some
it
found
was
it pretty
fine.
hard at stages. I mean, especially in Victoria was pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I've got friends whose kids basically just didn't go to school
Mm.
for like almost 2 years. Like I never stopped other than like the lockdowns when we had to stay at home, and that was only like I think 2 weeks out of like the whole year.
Yeah.
My kids went to school every day. We were pretty lucky. So
Yeah, that's so good.
yeah.
Driving you insane otherwise.
Yeah, well, I had a COVID baby. I didn't actually get pregnant in COVID. But yeah, my youngest was born in June 2020. Um,
Okay.
so like that was hard, like being pregnant with food restrictions, especially when you've got
Yeah.
like cravings. I was
Yes.
like, I just want to buy all the 2 minute noodles. That's all I want to eat. I don't want to buy two packets. I want to buy the whole shelf.
What about the container? Don't worry about the toilet paper going.
Yeah,
The two noodles were gone.
no, exactly. Yeah, so it was just that kind of stuff. And then of course, like the hospital, the kids weren't allowed to visit. So
Yeah.
we just left early, and came home early rather than, hanging out at the hospital. Because I just didn't want to be away from like them and not being able to see them.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah. You didn't have to
but
go by
yeah,
yourself though, did you? Like I know some have had
pardon?
You didn't have to have the baby by yourself though, did you? Like I know some had to do that.
No, no, no. I could still have my husband. I wasn't allowed gas, which sucked. Um,
Okay.
yeah, that was a bit annoying because that was my like go-to pain relief.
Yeah.
Um, and then like I was allowed fentanyl, but by the time the fentanyl hit, she was already out. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
ended up being high after I gave birth to her.
Oh, that would have
So
been
yeah, missed
interesting.
the boat on that one. Yeah, no, just a few weird things like that. Like staffing wise, like normally like you get heaps of different midwives like coming in, to your room and checking on you, but we literally had like one dedicated midwife.
Yeah. Well,
Um, so we just saw like that same person. And then the hospital were quite happy that we wanted to go home early. They were like, cool, that's one less person,
yeah. Yeah.
like we need to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was definitely a bit different, but in the grand scheme of things, that was the fourth baby, so we were
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
Your
all over
experience
it.
sorted.
Yeah. I honestly I feel horrible for all of the first time mums that didn't get like that proper experience.
Yeah.
Not having their family come in and visit, and not being able to get deliveries and flowers and all of that kind of stuff. I know that was all restricted
Yeah.
then. But yeah, that would have been sad missing out on that for your first time. But
Yeah. No,
we were fourth time in, we were happy just to go home.
done it before. Let's go.
Yeah, get out
Yeah.
of here.
Yeah. Um, okay, no, obviously, just talking about your store and that, what sort of the main things that you focus on selling? I know you sort of do a little bit of everything, the toys, your wraps.
Yeah, so we mainly do like the gift kind of stuff. So we don't go into any of like the bigger purchases like your furniture, your car seats, or your prams or anything like that. We stick to more of the gift side of stuff, and we're sort of age based. We sort of age out at about the age of 3. So there are a few things for kids a little bit older than 3. And we mainly do that for parents that like to come in and they quickly grab something for an older sibling while they were here,
Yeah,
buy something for the younger one.
yeah,
But yeah, clothing wise, we start from like newborn and go up to age 3. Most of our toys like age 3. So we do like puzzle stacking toys, magnetic stuff. And then like we do dummies, swaddles, your clothes, your dummy holders, your teasers, soft toys. And then we do some mum stuff. So like, your nipple balms, your belly butters, like lactation cookies, and then some recovery stuff like bath soaps and things like that.
yeah. Okay. Oh, cool. Bit of everything. That's awesome.
Yeah, everything. Yep. And then
Yeah,
of course, yeah, the baby carriers. The
yeah,
baby carriers are the big one.
yeah. No, definitely. And that's something sort of, I guess I wanted to chat to you about today is sort of your baby carriers, a lot around the safety of that. Um, I know you did a video the other day, which was super interesting. I actually like enjoyed
Thanks.
watching. Yeah, just around sort of the safety of baby carriers, and um, showing people how to sort of use them properly. There's been sort of some cases with suffocation of babies and things like that. So that's definitely something we want to avoid and make sure parents are aware of. But I'll let you
Yeah, so
properly into
yeah,
that.
yeah. So with baby carriers, it's kind of like really any sort of, I suppose, safety aspect. Like, when you have a car seat, if you don't know how to install a car seat, then you get it installed by a professional.
Yeah,
With your like cot and your sleeping arrangements, you always refer to SIDS and their safety guidelines, what you should or shouldn't have in the cot to keep your baby as safe as possible with sleeping.
yeah,
So, the same sort of goes for baby carriers. But it's an unfortunate shame that in Australia we don't actually have any safety standards for baby carriers. So
okay. I love that. Yeah,
all the baby carriers and their safety standards, they're actually tested to US or European standards. So like for example, a few years back when we started stocking the bibs dummies,
yeah,
there were recalls on the bibs dummies because the ACCC found that a few suppliers weren't selling the dummies with the correct safety instructions on them. So the dummy itself was safe, but people didn't have like the hazard of choking and warning parents like stuck to the back of the like the container that they were being sold in. So they
Yeah.
got recalled for that.
Yeah.
None of that would happen with baby carriers because there are no safety standards here in Australia. So there's only been, I think, 2 recalls in the past few years, and they have been recalled by the company, like self-recalled, where the
Yeah.
companies noticed that there was an issue with the carrier and they recalled them themselves. But there's never actually been a safety recall from the ACCC on something on
Wow.
safe because they don't actually have any testing or standards for them.
Yeah. Wow. Because there
So
is that.
basically, anyone can sell anything.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Because there is that. I don't know. It's like the ticks.
The
Um.
TIC guidelines.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's not. Is that just a guideline? It's obviously
Yeah.
not.
So that's not a safety thing. Like that's not a like something that was started by our government at all. That was actually created in 2010 by the UK Sling Consortium.
Yeah.
And so basically there had obviously been some cases of some like deaths in baby slings. And so that was more so the slings back in the day, like so around sort of 2010. That's when you used to be able to buy those pouch slings. So they would just look like a sort of a shoulder bag,
Yeah.
and the baby would be cradled, sort of in them, like you would hold them in your arms, but like in the sling. And those safety guidelines came out around then because there had been issues of suffocation in those carriers. So a lot of those carriers have been removed from the market now. Some of them do still exist, but they do have warnings on them. They're actually to be used for toddlers to carry your toddler on your hip,
Yeah.
not for newborns anymore. So basically, how baby carriers and safety work is every new information always comes out, and so guidelines and things from other countries and things change, and then that information just sort of gets passed down. Really, there's nothing coming from like high up in our Australian government or from the ACCC. Basically, like each of the different states, I think, issue every now and again a few things through the ACCC saying like this is baby carrier safety, and then they refer to the TICS guidelines again. So yeah, the TICS guidelines, what they actually mean is so tight, so wearing your baby in a carrier tight, in view at all times. So basically, their face should always be in view, so you should be able to look down and see their face. C is close enough to kiss, so you should be able to pop your head down like so, and you should be able to kiss the top of their head. So their head should sit in their carrier within this region.
Yeah.
You've got to keep their chin off their chest. So they shouldn't be able to have their chin fall down to their chest like so, because that can obviously restrict their airways and their breathing. So you should be able to fit 2 fingers between their chin and their chest, and that gives them enough room to be able to breathe.
Yeah.
And then you've got TICK, supported back. So you want their back to be in the carrier sort of straight, like when you're looking at it forward on, their back is straight in the carrier. You don't want them sort of slumped to the side or leaning over, because that can also cause suffocation issues as well.
Yeah.
And the most important time to use the TICS guidelines is in the first 4 months of a baby's life, because that's when obviously they have the least amount of head control, and they aren't able to support their own head and body weight at those ages. So you need to be more vigilant of them in a carrier at those times. Mm-hmm. Also with premature babies or babies of low birth weight, you obviously need to keep an eye on them more, but you also need to make sure that the carrier that you purchase is suitable for their size and their weight. Most carriers start from about 3.2 kilos. So if you do have a small or preemie baby, you might actually not be able to wear them safely in a carrier until they have put on some more weight. And if you do want to wear them in a carrier, you should also probably check with like your pediatrician, GP, gynecologist, that kind of thing, to make sure that their lungs and that are developed enough to be able to sit in a carrier.
Yeah. And is there sort of like different carriers you'd recommend for different ages? Like is a newborn sort of better in one certain carrier?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we understand that, not everyone loves to wrap or learn how to wrap a wrap, and just popping them in like a soft structured carrier, like, your Ergo 360 that everyone knows about, is much simpler. But if you can start with a wrap carrier, like a ring sling or a stretchy wrap, they are the 2 best options that you can start with, because it doesn't matter the size of the wearer or the size of the baby. You can customize the size and the tightness to fit the baby based on their size. Whereas when you're moving into your soft structure carriers, so like I said, the Ergo 360, like your Tula Frida Grows or Explores, Lilla Babies, Chico Clips, any of those kind of carriers. A lot of them are like to fit birth to toddler. So they generally fit from 3.2 to 15 kilos or 3.2 to 20 kilos. So of course, the smaller you make it to try and fit a smaller baby, it's also going to fit a toddler at the age of 2 when it's in its biggest form. So making it as small as possible fit a newborn baby, there's always going to be some kind of compromise on the fit to get it to fit such a small baby. So if you can start with the options where the fit's a bit more customizable, that is a great place to start. But obviously understanding that not everyone has the same ability, has the same arm reach or movement, and or they just prefer like, you know, an easier or what they would deem a quicker option, then yes, by all means you can use one of those sort of structured carriers. But you just do need to be a little bit more vigilant in your positioning in those kind of carriers as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. The other thing as well is you often see with even carriers or things like that, you can have obviously your baby forward or you're facing you, facing forward, or then you obviously get your ones where they're on the back. So if you want to sort of run through that a little bit, what sort of the best options with that, or even just safety around that of having them in different positions?
Yeah, so I mean, forward facing is sort of a little bit controversial in the baby wearing world. So there are some like, you know, hardcore, I suppose, baby wearers that you know, don't love the outward facing or the forward facing position at all. I mean, me personally, I've had the 4 kids and I've never felt the need to forward face them in a carrier. But over my 7 years of fitting babies, there are a couple of babies that I have met that just love that outward sort of facing perspective. Me personally, from a personal point of view, I feel like it throws off your center of gravity and throws off your balance. And I love a back carry, much more comfortable for me because I feel like I'm just wearing my child as a backpack. So I can sort of keep them, you know, where I can see them. So you still sit them high so they can see out over your shoulder. But I've kept the weight like on my back rather than if it's outward facing. If they go to lean or lunge for something, I'm small. They can take me with them. But basically a forward facing option, there are a number of carriers that do it. So you've got your baby Bjorns, you've got your Ergos, you've got like your little baby carriers. There's also Happy Baby and I think Fico, and there's probably a whole bunch of others that I haven't used personally before. Your better ones are like your Ergo and your little baby, and that they still let you outward face your baby, but in an ergonomic position. So you're keeping their hips in a hip friendly position. A lot of the older style baby Bjorn carriers have a very narrow seat. So when you're sitting your baby in the forward facing position or even the inward facing position, they don't have enough thigh support. So that can force their hips to not sit in the socket properly. So basically, if you can get one of the other options, it will be better for you in the long run. So yeah, sorry, somebody's just come in. Yeah, so basically forward facing is something that's generally recommended by most manufacturers as well, from when the baby's independently sitting, so they can pull themselves up into a seated position. That means that their neck and spine control, like, and their muscles are all developed to hold them in that position long enough. And you also don't want to be doing it too much longer. I think most of the recommendations are from sort of 6 to 12 months for a forward-facing position. Beyond 12 months, that's obviously when they get a bit bigger and heavier. And then it's probably best to switch them over to a back carrying. And a lot of manufacturers as well recommend doing your outward-facing option for like a maximum of a 20 to 30-minute vlog. Just because when they're in the carrier, if they do get tired and they want to fall asleep, they can't fall asleep in the forward-facing option because they don't have anywhere to rest their head. So as long as you're mindful of those sort of things, that's why if you follow the TIC guidelines as well, so you're always watching their social cues. If you can see that they're getting tired, like they're yawning or they're rubbing in their eyes, then, you know, just take them out the carrier, turn them around so they can fall asleep on your chest. Or obviously if you move it to a back carry, they can fall asleep with their head on their shoulder.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot, sort of a lot more that goes into it than you sort of would think. Um,
Yeah.
Looking at it, I guess. And I know, like, I was sort of doing a bit of research, and um, it was saying that I think it was 3 babies in Australia have died since 2010, which doesn't sound like a
And
lot, but it,
it's not a lot. There are, I think now that was, I think there's actually now with the latest one that happened in 2019, I think it's four now.
wow.
The 2019 one obviously is being the most recent, and that one, obviously the inquest into that baby's death only happened a couple of weeks ago. The inquest was finalised.
Yep.
So unfortunately, in that case, um, the the way the baby was positioned in the carrier, it wasn't worn following the directions from the manufacturer's guidelines. So the baby had been positioned in the carrier very much similarly to how the other babies have passed away in earlier years when they were in the bag sling.
Yeah.
So the baby was positioned in this stretchy wrap, in the cradle position, like you would hold them in your arms, but cradled, and it was quite low. So the coroner noted that the baby was probably at the mum's belly button level, rather than sort of being up high, in the mum's line of sight.
Yeah.
So that's why, like after that inquest, there's been more of a focus again on the TICS guidelines, and just following the manufacturer's guidelines. So obviously, not everyone is going to purchase their carrier in a store from a baby wearing consultant. Obviously, a lot of people, rely on the internet, online sales. So it's just really, really important that when you actually do purchase a baby wearing product, to actually read the instruction manual that it comes with. Even though there obviously are YouTube tutorials and things like that, a lot of them can also be outdated because things last on YouTube forever unless people pull down their old videos.
Yeah.
So the best way to get the best information for the carrier you purchase is to always go, either to the place that you purchased it for information from their website, or to the manufacturer's actual website. So if you bought a Tula, you could head to Tula's website and they've got their own instructional videos. If you buy an Ergo, you head to Ergo Baby's website and you look at their video tutorials and instruction manuals. It's always best to find the newest or most recent tutorial, because obviously that would then be the most updated information for you to
Yeah.
be using your carrier with.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's super important that parents are looking at the proper way to use them and everything. And you mentioned as well, obviously, a consultant. I know you do a bit of that yourself as well. So if someone
Yeah.
purchases one from your
So
store.
yeah, I run my business a little bit differently, because I obviously have the store, so I consult, but based on the carriers that I've sold, or I am selling. Whereas a lot of other consultants work independently. And so what they will do is, if you book like a carrier consult with them, they'll bring a whole suitcase of carriers over to your house, or they will help you with the carriers that you already have. And they will go through, if you want to work with a soft structured carrier, they'll try different structured carriers on. If you want to learn how to do a woven wrap, they'll go through different ways to wrap your baby in a woven wrap, the different lengths of woven wraps, pros and cons of, having a short one or a long one, those kind of things. I do it, like I said, I do it a little bit differently. So basically, we've got two different styles of appointments here. You can book an appointment to purchase a carrier, or you can book an appointment to have a carrier fitted that you already own.
Yeah.
So if you're purchasing a carrier from us, the carrier fitting is no fee, because the fee is inbuilt into the cost of actually purchasing the carrier. If you're having a carrier fitted that you haven't purchased from us, but you still want assistance with it, that fee is $50, but that fee is then redeemable on products in the store. But we only sort of work with like stretchy wraps and baby carriers and similar carriers to what we sell. I don't go into like the woven wraps and things like that here. My aim is to just get people wearing the products that they already own or have in the safest way possible. But yeah, so there are consultants in Australia. There used to be, I don't actually know if it's still active. I originally trained through the Baby Wearing School of Australia. They were based in Brisbane and Melbourne. But there is a new like baby wearing body that was created in 2020 by a consultant in Brisbane called Brooke Marie Baby Wearing, and also Kelly Rackage, who owns Anne Carlier Carriers. And they started the Australian Baby Wearing Association. And so that's been active for the last 2 years. And they are now training more people. So they're training people to become consultants, but they're also training midwives and health professionals and anyone actually that works with carriers. So people that work at other stores that are selling carriers, they've got different training programs based on like their profession to help obviously get more babies safe in carriers.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, interesting. And you definitely sort of everyone probably doesn't do consultants and things like that, but it's probably definitely recommended especially if you're a first time mum.
It's funny. I see, so like this is how I got into my baby wearing journey, and it's so funny because I actually see a lot of my clients like with the same thing. So I tried to buy a carrier with my first baby, and I bought it online. Did all the research, bought what I thought was the best thing for us. And then when she was actually born, she was born very small. She was 49 centimeters and only 2.9 kilos. And so she was too small to go in the carrier that I purchased. And then me being like a small person as well, even as she grew, the carrier that I had for her, it's called a hybrid stretchy. So it's like the normal stretchy wrap, but it's sewn in certain places. So once you get to a certain point with it, you can't actually tighten it anymore. Once you reach its limit, there's no way to tighten it anymore. And that was our issue because she was so small. And then I was a smaller frame. The carrier couldn't be tightened beyond a certain point. So she used to just sag and sink in it. And so that's when I sort of met some mums group. And they got me into like different carriers. I tried their carriers on and things. And I finally ended up getting my first proper carrier that we could wear when she was about 10 months old. So I sort of missed that whole newborn phase in a carrier with her. And I thought, surely, you know, I'm not the only one, you know, that hasn't been able to find their first, you know, their best carrier first go. And then when I had my second child, obviously you then have two kids and you've got a toddler that you have to run around after. But then you have to find something to do with the baby that's clingy and doesn't want to go down. And so that's when I really got into the baby wearing. That's when I did the baby wearing course when he was about, how old would he have been? 8 or 9 months old, I think, when I did the course with him. And then that's what I see in the store all the time. Heaps of people coming in, they're like, oh, look, we had this kind of carrier for our first, but we never really used it much. But now that we've got 2 kids, you know, I really need, you know, a carrier to put the baby in so I can do, you know, daycare drop off or kindy drop off or, you know, go to the shops or go to the park and chase the toddler, but, you know, still have the baby close to me. Yeah. And so that's where I thought if I've gone through that experience, surely somebody else has. Yeah. And that's what I've definitely found over the years. So I do see a lot of first time parents, but I do tend to see a lot of second time parents. They didn't need a carrier for their first, but they definitely need it once they hit child number 2.
Yeah, no, interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, last question, I guess, is if there's one carrier you would recommend, what would it be for all parents?
There's definitely not one carrier for all parents. I liken baby carriers to jeans. It's definitely not a situation of the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Yeah. What will fit me will not necessarily fit, you know, the next person. If you've got like big boobs, you know, certain carriers will not fit you if you have big boobs. I do not have big boobs at all. So there are other carriers that are, you know, better suited to me. Yeah, like I said, different carriers for different things. You sort of need to work out what you want your carrier for and what the most important things on your checklist are. And then you find a carrier to meet that criteria and tick off as many boxes on your checklist as possible. So if outward facing is a huge thing for you and you really want to outward face, then that knocks out quite a lot of carriers because not all of them outward face. But if you have a very large child, so if you've got an awesome chunky monkey with massive thighs, going into something like an Ergo 360 might not be the best option for you because they might grow out of that sooner than they would grow out of one of the like larger carriers that heads into a toddler sort of age. Yeah. So it's definitely, carriers are definitely like really rely on the size of the baby and then the size of the person wearing them to get, you know, the best fit possible. Yeah. So, like if you can try them on before you buy one, definitely do that. There's lots of, and again, it's been years since I've been in them because I don't need them anymore, but there's lots of Facebook groups around in different suburbs of baby wearing. So you could look up, like Adelaide baby wearers. I know there used to be one like Mornington Peninsula baby wearers. You can have a look and see if like a lot of those groups would still be active. There's also groups on Facebook based on like the actual carrier that you like. So if you like a Tula carrier, for example, there's a Tula carrier group. There's a large Australian group, and there's also like buy, sell, swap groups as well. So you can also get help from a lot of those groups. Some of them still have, like carrier meetups where you can meet at a community centre or, a library or a park, and they have a day where you can try carriers on and see what fits, and you'll get help from peers. Won't always necessarily be a baby wearing consultant there, but there'll definitely be people that have worn, 2 or 3 or 4 of their kids and have quite a lot of knowledge themselves as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely worthwhile than sort of spending a whole bunch of money on a carrier or something and it not working. So
yeah, and look, some of the most popular ones, like every time I go into like a parenting Facebook group, I always see everyone like recommending like, the popular ones like, your Baby Bjorns or your Ergos or your whatever. Yeah. And I feel like maybe if they knew other brands or they tried something else, and maybe they would find that carrier, that, there are other ones that are better for them. Who knows? But yeah, there is more than one carrier brand out there. There are also international brands that do fabulous things as well. Yeah. So basically my main advice is just, do a broader search and see, other things out there rather than just what's sold in like, your commercial stores.
Yeah, rather than your popular, everyone's different. Everyone's got their own styles.
Yeah, and I actually find quite a lot of them are actually really quite overpriced. A lot of your like the ones in your big stores, your like for example, your Baby Bjorns or something that somebody had the other day, it was like a $300 carrier.
Yeah, wow.
You don't have to spend $300 on a carrier for it to just be good. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are some really, really great carrier options, and they're only $170.
Yeah.
So yeah, just do your research, and if you can try something on before you buy it, definitely do that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, awesome. I think that sort of covered a lot of the information that we're sort of looking at. So thanks so much for your time and everything.
But that's all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I definitely recommend everyone to go check out your store. It's gorgeous. I haven't seen it in person, but from pictures.
Thank you. I'm very behind on pictures too, I will say that.
Oh, really? Oh.
I just keep reusing the same one.
You got to do that. Like everything's just
I know, you run out of time.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, that's awesome. I think that's given our followers and everything some really good information to look at. But main thing is just really doing your research and making sure that you're going by the guidelines, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Just follow those instructions. Track her in that instruction booklet and give it a good read.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks so much for that.